wonder what it's in for. Well, if you guessed 911 video, you guessed right. We got a Mustang today, and this is a sad story. Story of disappointment, failure, and impatience. I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, what? Let's take a look in the trunk real quick. Follow me. So over here in the corner of the trunk, you see this guy right here, and you think, wait a minute, those are some 5-star logoed heat shrinks. Those guys. And you'd be like, hey a minute, he just said it was a 911 video, and that's a 5-star install. How could a 911 video and something that we've already worked on be what? Doesn't make sense. And you'd be right, it doesn't make sense to us either. Here's the backstory, because everyone loves a backstory. Owner of said Mustang comes in on a Saturday and says, hey man, you guys did my girl's car, I want you to do my car. And we're like, you bet bro, what you need? He goes, I need some subs, I need some bang in my trunk, I need an amp. No problem man, put an amp in, put some subs in, rock on. Comes back a couple months later and he's like, hey man, I need to finish off my system. This is all unbeknownst to us because we're just installers. Paul quotes him out a price. Price is good. When can you do it? Can you do it right now? No. No, we can't. We have a schedule out. You know, it's gonna be a little bit. Oh, bro, can't wait. Can't wait. Gotta have it now. Now. What he does is he takes it to another shop, and believe it or not, it's the same shop from the previous 911 video. We'll just call him Hurry and Cash. Cash and Hurry. Goes there, has it put in. Comes back here a couple weeks ago, and he says, hey man, I need a second battery. This little guy here is just killing it. No problem. Look at it and go, man, you know, we can move that amp forward. I could tuck a battery behind there and make a cool little battery box. Look slick as heck. Take about an hour, hour and a half. You're all good. He's like, cool. Here's where the fun comes in. Shows up at about 3:30 when the appointment was, because we figured it's just a 2-hour job, no big deal. We'll have him out by the time we close. We pop the hood, we see a 0 gauge, and we're like, wait a minute. 4 gauge in the back and there's a 0 gauge underneath the hood. Why is there a 0 gauge? Start exploring a little bit, and we're like, hey, hold on. This guy has some new speakers in the car. That's right, these are the crossovers for the rear deck speakers. Here's both of them. Neat, huh? Pull down the back seat and we're like, holy crap, there's a whole nother amplifier. And hey, look, put some Tessa tape on it, because this is the ground. I guess that means that this one is black. Here's our wiring, and I'm gonna use some shitty butt connectors, cool there. And then we pull up the seat and we see this is our 0 gauge to 4 gauge distribution up underneath the seat. And as you can see, the RCA is just zip tied to it, and this thing is pulled tight. So this is like getting super stretched from the seat here. And then we follow this wire here, and it goes up through here, up behind here, loops back down around here. And then here's your ground. They used this. Really? Okay. Hey, they sanded it though. We got our speed wire here, and
6 feet of RCAs right there.
There's a tunnel right here that this is actually supposed to run through, but okay. At this point, we're like, holy cow, this isn't just a battery install. There's a ton of stuff going on here. I mean, what? Grab the customer and we bring him out to his car and we say, hey man, what happened? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, there's a ton of extra stuff in your car that we didn't put in. He's like, oh man. So he tells me the story about, you know, can't wait, go to other shop, get the stuff done. How he's been back a bunch of times. And I'm like, that's great, but we can't put a battery in, because really? Your distribution block's there, just taped up, hoping to God that tape never comes off? That's awesome. We scheduled an appointment for 2 weeks later, so at some point he's gonna have to wait, and now he had to wait. Hey, listen man, we need to redo this. And he's like, yeah, I'm down for that, let's do it. I'm like, it's 3 o'clock. This is an all-day job. You know, that time you didn't want to wait to have us do the full install? Well, today's the day. You're gonna have to wait. 2 weeks have passed. He's back in today. We're gonna strip this car. We're gonna pull out the speakers. We're gonna pull out the rear deck. We're gonna pull out all this power wire. We're gonna run a new 0 gauge. We're gonna mount the amplifiers. We're gonna take our amp out. We're gonna mount it someplace else. We're gonna move that amplifier off the seat where the wires are all just getting raked and pinched and, oh, Jesus. We have no idea what the speakers look like in the door. We can only assume by looking at the rear speakers they can't be pretty. My guess is there's probably some crossovers laying around somewhere. I don't know, we're gonna have to find those. He does have a new deck in using the Metro dash kit, which is cool. Let's get started. First thing we want to do is pop the hood and disconnect the fuse underneath the hood, because you don't want to deal with a live 0 gauge through a car. Ford now conveniently hides the battery. There's these little twisty guys here that you just kind of twist and pull up and they come out. Fuse holder is mounted, which is good. I don't know what they did with our mount. At least it's mounted. We don't have a 0 gauge flopping around underneath the hood. And it does look like there's an extra 1.5 feet of wire down. I don't know, what is going on? There's a lot of extra zero gauge in here. We might not actually have to run a new zero gauge. This one might actually be long enough once we get this disconnected and figure out where they ran it to. That'd be cool. Now the other thing you have to be real careful about on these Fords is a lot of the times these things are anodized, which means they're a real crappy contact for what you're trying to do here. Sometimes you have to sand these surfaces so that they make better contact. The thickness of the fuse holder is only about maybe a little more than 1/8 of an inch, and the metal is right behind it, but you use a 1-inch self-tapper. Oh, I got it. So they twisted the fuse holder in there, so instead of having it run the right direction. Okay, that makes sense. This is what I pulled out of that battery box for wire. That's a lot of wire. I just got the rear speakers out. Check this out. They just hacked up the factory speaker and mounted this nice JLC3 in it. Screw that missed. Screw. This one they got all 4 screws screwed into something. This one they just kind of got close on this one, I guess. Totally destroyed the factory speakers to put these in. I mean, these adapters are only like 15 bucks. Now if this guy ever wants to trade this car back in, he's got to buy either some new speakers or find some factory ones to put back, you know what I mean? They're 15 bucks. 15 bucks ruin the speaker. The side of the car here, this is the bass knob. We ran it through the factory track. This is the RCA they ran back for the sub amp. They just tucked it in. Fernando just called me. He just got the driver's front door off. He wants me to take a look at it, which means he wants you guys to take a look at it. We found the crossover. They're over here. The other one was here in the dash somewhere. You can work on them outside of the car. There's enough room to wire them up over here and then just tuck it back in. I'm pretty sure this is what he wanted to call me in about. What the heck is this? This is water damage, and it's actually wet because we had a huge rainstorm last night. I mean, it rains in Florida. This is just 1/4 inch hardboarded. I don't even know what shape this is. Like, I'm thinking they just kept notching it on the table saw until they found something that would fit, and then they mounted the speaker in the door. The random hole in the door, they just ran the speaker wire through it. Now people ask, why do we take the whole car apart? And the answer is simple, because you don't know what's behind the panel. You, the consumer, don't know what's behind the panel, and we sure as heck don't. To assume like, oh yeah, the speaker's playing, it's good. The speaker was playing. By the end of summer, this will pretty much fallen out of the door, because last night was really the first rain we've gotten for the season, and the season it rains every day. That's why we use plastic. Fernando just called me over. This is the front door that we showed you earlier. There is the factory bracket, foamed, soldered, taped, quick disconnects. Good job, buddy.